You know your purpose now. What's your message? What's your message? You've got to have a message. You've got to have a message. Now, at this point in my ministry, I've gone back to rebranding and re-solidifying my message. I was so consumed with the Zion Christian Ministries that I believe this part, by the way, I'm sharing with you stuff that I wish I had done. I wasn't as prepared as I needed to be. Let me let you hear that one more time. I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. No one prepared me. I didn't have what you're getting right now. So no one prepared me for what was to come. And I've always said, Lord, one day I want to pour back into some people before they launch because I want them to know. Okay? So what is your message? You got to have something to say. Yeah, you have something to say. Your message really should leak into almost every sermon you teach, right? You have to have something unique to say. People follow what they think is unique. People follow what they think is interesting. All right? Is your message interesting? That's what I want. That's what I want you to kind of grapple with. My message is quite simple. All right? I noticed it in all of my sermons. I noticed something in all of my teachings is that I believe everyone can be great. If you hear my sermons long enough, my teachings long enough, some kind of way I'm pushing people to greatness. Some kind of way I'm telling people about a life process that eventually you'll end being great. That you can live above the level of mediocrity. That God is pushing you and moving you. He's got a preferred future for your life. That your destiny that waits ahead of you. I'm pushing people to great. That's my message. Right? I don't have a prophetic message. I know pastors. I have pastor friends who do. And let me say that to you before we get started too. And that's why I'm taking the time to get you prepared. You have to identify who you are. Because as you go along this journey, you will have various people who come to your ministry. Some people will say, hey, this was for me. I love the church. There's only one thing. I'm used to healing and deliverance every week. Okay? I'm used to prophetic word every week. You would not believe the countless amount of people who have said that to me. But because I was sure with who I am, and because I know now I'm not trying to discover purpose. I'm not trying to discover my message. I know my message. I know my purpose. I know why I exist. That doesn't move me. I can recommend them to churches that flow in that. That's not me every single week. Now, there are times and moments where I speak prophetically. There are times and moments where we have healing and deliverance at our altar. But what I want to tell you today is you do not have to become what other people want you to become, especially when you know what your purpose is, what your message is. You have to get that identified today. My message is I believe everyone can be great. And sometimes speaking in tongues doesn't make you great, right? Coming in, receiving a prophetic word is not the end all tell all. You can receive the prophetic word, but then don't go act on the prophetic word that was spoken. So greatness is not wrapped up in whether you receive the prophetic word or not. Greatness is not wrapped up on how well you can speak in tongues, but greatness is wrapped up in how well you apply those principles to your life and go through the process of life and you work toward greatness. That's my message. I know that beyond the shadow of a doubt. I'm not guessing on that. I know my message. So how does that help those of you who, and we'll get to that in a minute. I'm talking about preparing your sermon calendar, and I'll get to that. By the way, this is training, man. I'm not editing this video. I'm coaching you. I'm coaching you as you're getting ready to launch, or you're in your first year and it's kind of shaky right now. You're in your second year and you're like, I don't know about this. This will bless you. Find your message. If you have not already, what is your message? Right? Every sermon series you preach, every sermon you preach or you teach, tie your message in. I always reflectively say, and this is another course. I do another course on creative preaching, but I always ask myself in my sermon notes, what do I want them to do at the end of this message? That's part of my sermon preparation. What do I want them to do? All right? How do I want them to feel? Okay? How do I want them to feel at the end of this message? Okay? And then in the moment, how do I want them to respond? Right? What I want them to do happens during the week when they leave here. Feel is how I want them to leave there emotionally, cognitively feel it. I want them to feel something and then respond. That's how I want them to respond. Do I want them to come to the altar? Do I want them to lift their hands right there? I need to ask those questions, because if I'm going to get my message across accurately, then those are the key components. All right. I hope this is blessing. I hope this is blessing you, because I wish I had learned these valuable lessons the easy way. All right. Here it is. Then I want you to develop your story. Your story. Where are you from? It's different from a bio. Okay? You ought to be able to tell your story. Right? Your story is directly affected by your message. Right? My message is, I believe everyone can be great. I believe right now I'm walking in greatness. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, let me tell you the story of my life then. Okay? So from my message, right? From my message, I tell my story. Okay? I tell my story. I tell my story from my message. Okay? Talk about your childhood. How were you searching for something? Okay? And this is going to make sense in a minute, because I'm going to tell you how to tie all of this together. Talk about your childhood. How did God change your life? How did God change your life? How did you walk into ministry? Okay? What is your fulfillment in your life now? Okay? These are your message, your story. You have to be able to tell your story. I know my message and I know my story. People going to be coming and partnering with your ministry, they don't know you. All right? But you have to become. It was business coach Michael Burt who says this, that if you're going to become a person of interest, you need to be the type person that people that people want to be around and can't live without. People need to be attracted to your story. People need to be attracted to your story. Even now, people ask me all the time. I have a unique story. I was once I graduated high school, came and was on full football scholarship at MTSU. And even while I was on the team, they called me Rev. I was the team chaplain. I serve now as the team chaplain of MTSU. Then I also fought fire. I was a firefighter here at Murfreesboro. Then I coached for 8 years. I wore all of these different hats and roles. At the same time, I was pastoring in the community. Man, that's interesting. That story is unique. People, they gravitate toward that. Man, you were a firefighter? Yeah, I was a firefighter. I was putting out fires there, but it was preparing me for putting out fires in God's kingdom. You see that? You see how you make your story interesting. I need you to know what your story is. People will be attracted to your story, especially if it's unique. Man, this is good. I'm glad we're having a time to spend with each other. Now, let's talk about content. Now, I talk about your message. The message was not merely your sermons. But let's talk about this. And maybe I need to devote a little bit more time to this later on, okay? But we're talking about sermons, teachings. Okay, you got sermons, you got teachings, all right? I'd like to look at my calendar, with your sermon calendar. Then you look at series. What I've discovered is when you're talking about content, those of you who have already launched, okay, I would advise you, you're already 1-2 years in. I would advise you, this is what I do. Take about, whether it's beginning of the year, I do it beginning of the year and mid-year, every single year. Actually, the beginning of the year for me starts in December, okay? So round about December, I'll take 2 to 3 days off from the church, and I go somewhere and I just plan, okay? I plan. I hear from God. Then mid-year, probably around June, sometime during the summer, around June, I'll take time and I'll just go and plan, okay? Why is this important? Because what it does is it gives you an opportunity to take all of your content and arrange it with how the year flows. You kind of get an idea of when your people are coming. You kind of get an idea of what's happening in our city at this time. And so I would encourage that. If you are not launched yet, you're serving at your pastor's church. And I'm going to talk a little bit about more of that here in a minute too. But you're serving at your pastor's church. You're not pastoring yet. You have a very unique opportunity. Don't rush it. Hear me. Don't rush that. If you have not launched yet, you have an opportunity to go ahead and get prepared. I would labor to say, sermon-wise, you need at least 1 year of sermons. My God, I wish I had somebody tell me this. If you've not launched yet, you need at least 1 year worth of sermon notes right now. Because once you get going, the thing you sacrifice once you get started is your creativity in your preaching. Because when you get started, if you start like me, most of you who don't have but about 10 people with you, or you don't have any at all, you're stepping out on faith. Or maybe you have 50, but you're going to spend most of your time planning, administrating, developing leaders, trying to grow the church, advertising, getting your face out there, doing commercials. And if you're bivocational, you're working a full-time job doing that. If you're serving right now with the church, go ahead now. If your pastor operates on series, your pastor's preaching every week, why not take the series that your pastor is preaching? Prepare sermons with him or her. Prepare sermons on those series as if you were preaching them. That's good training. That's taking the initiative. The next year rolls around. Man, take those same month series, put a different swag on it, and preach the sermons you prepared as the year went on. Now, when you get going, you've already got a year's worth of sermons already prepared. Man, you need a year's worth of content in your teaching. Then now, Bible study. What are you going to do about that? Your teachings, okay? I suggest you need at least 1 year of that as well. You need 1 year of that as well. We take the first 3 Wednesdays that are out of our month, and we do Bible study. And the last Wednesday, the 4th Wednesday of every month, is open for us, okay? It's open for us. But you need at least a year's worth of content, both on Wednesday nights and on Sunday. Okay? Then you put together your sermonic calendar. The first thing I do every day, really, that I come into my office, I have my calendar pulled up on one screen. I've got my year's worth of sermons on this screen. So I never approach a Sunday not knowing where I'm going. It's my calendar is synonymous. It's synonymous with my life, right? My sermon calendar. So you want to take your sermon calendar and make it part of what you do. Maybe one day I'll put together something that kind of shows you how I go through it and how I think about my sermon calendar year. That may be something well worth sharing as well. Okay, so make sure you have content for a year. Then your series have to be geared toward seasonal things. What's happening during the summer? Attendance is going to slack a little bit during the summer, so you have to be prepared for that. So what do you have to do? People are going to be bringing families in and out of town. Guests are going to be visiting. Other churches cancel on Wednesday night. It's a prime opportunity. So you may get some crowd, you may lose some crowd on Wednesday night. That's cool. So you do something creative on Wednesday night. Feed some people. Have some joint worship experiences with some churches on the community on Wednesday nights. Do some things that's more creative during the summer. On Sunday morning during the summer, all right? For example, when you're thinking about your series, like I said, people are visiting. They're all over the place, vacationing and things like that. But some people vacation in your city, right? Or some people travel or they go to other different churches during the summer just to kind of try some things out. Have some very catchy sermon series. We do stuff like Real Husbands of the Bible, Real Wives of the Bible. Do something real catchy to kind of draw people during the summer. If you know attendance is going to be down, you have to go a little extra mile of the way to get people there. So I operate in series because as you start your ministry, time and preparation for sermons is going to be minimal, right? Until you build it to where, if you buy my book, The 3 T's of Ministry, I talk about 3 principles: teach, train, and trust. Till you build your leadership team to where you can trust them to do it. Now it frees you up to focus. That's where I'm at right now, to focus primarily on preaching and creativity. Until you get it to that point, you're doing most of the work. Okay? So those first 1, 2, 3 years, even sometimes 4 and 5, you're doing most of the work. I didn't take salary until year 5. I didn't take salary. I was paying musicians and I wasn't getting paid until year 5. Till year 5, I think I started getting like $200 a week. I'm trying to tell you right now, you're going to have to be prepared for this. Okay? All right? So your series, my God, I'm giving you all I have. I pray and I hope this is blessing somebody. You've got your story, you got your content. All right. Another thing I want you to consider, and we're almost time for us to take a break here in a minute. But another thing that I want you to consider is, what is your influence like? Influence. What is your influence like in your community? What is your influence like? Okay? Do people know you? Do people know you? Do they respect you? People respect you. Okay? All right? Are people following you? Huh? John Maxwell says that a leader is anyone who has influence. You got anybody following you? You're getting ready to step out there. Who's with you? You're a year or 2 years in. You have the same amount of people with you. Have you influenced others? right? Is everyone who's with you, family and friends, that won't last long. Not for some of them. Your family may be there, but some of those friends, that won't last long. I can tell you right now, I started with several friends. None of them are left. None of them are left. None of them. When you choose to be a pastor, you have to pastor everybody, not just your friends. They won't stay. Do you have influence? Who's following you? Do they respect you? Do people respect you in your community, right? Do they respect your life, your reputation? What is it like? Are you reputable, right? I pride myself. I can walk in any arena. People who know me, whether it be MTSU, whether it be city officials, police chief, mayor, when you hear my name, I have pride in saying, at least they'll say, oh, yeah, I know Chris. That's a great guy. People respect you. You have influence. If you're taking a walk, who's walking with you? I'd much rather have influence. I'd much rather have influence than riches. Because people who have riches have all the money in the world. Okay, you're getting paid all this money, but you can't influence anybody. That means you have no one to share it with. No one respects your name. But influence, if you have influence, you can walk into any room and influence anyone to write a check. I want to push you toward that. Influence. If you don't have influence in your community, you may want to build influence first. I know you have an inescapable desire to pastor, to preach, to teach. You want to be the number one guy or woman. You want to be the number one person. God has called you to pastor and to lead people. I get it. I get that. But the question that I have for you is, do you have influence? Because if you don't have influence, you'll step out there. No one will go with you. You'll step out there. You'll try to make decisions. And because you have no influence, nobody will respect what you say. You'll step out there. If you don't have influence, you'll get frustrated by year 1 or year 2. Why? Because you had a lot of inspiration, but you had no influence. I would encourage you to build influence first. How do you build influence? Build relationships. People need to see you in the community. People need to see you serving people. You need to have your name attached to people who do have influence. Serve somebody who has influence. That's how you get credibility. If you don't have influence, you may want to reconsider in this season launching. You want to be ready. You want to have influence before you launch. Okay? I would labor to say, I started Zion Christian Ministries in the KUC Theater on MTSU campus. I stepped out there on faith, yes, but praise God, I had influence. People knew me in the city. I had done work already in the city on campus in other ministries. My name was reputable. I stepped out there. We opened up the altar on the very first day, and 86 people joined our ministry because of influence, okay? Make sure you have influence. Now, your family dynamics. Here's what I want to do. I'm going to come back and talk about family dynamics. Let's take a break. I want to take a break, and then I'll come back on personal preparedness, and we'll finish this one off. The next session won't be so long. Let's take a break.